JotForm conversion tracking, let's go through a few methods how this can be implemented. So there are several ways, each with their pros and cons. So let's start with the absolute best method, which is when you have an iframe, like you can see here, we will listen to a message coming through from this iframe and then just send a conversion when that happens. So let's demonstrate. So a few things. I have a custom Google Tag Manager tag, a script that has JavaScript code that is listening for conversions that are coming through from the iframe. In this tab, I have the Google Analytics 4 debug view, so I will be able to see if it's working correctly. So let's fill out the form. I had to make a little edit. Okay, let's submit the form. Great, and now the form was submitted. Let's take a look at Tag Assistant. And here we can see the JotForm submitted trigger was fired. So this fired two example demo tags, the Google Analytics form submit and the Google Ads JotForm conversion. So here in Google Analytics 4 real-time view, I was able to now see the JotForm submitted on this page. So this is definitely the best method, using a conversion listener custom JavaScript that kind of handles all of the conversion tracking for you. And with this now working with the trigger and the listener, I can just go about my day and set up my tags, Google Analytics, Meta, Facebook Pixel, Google Ads, TikTok, whatever. So this is definitely the best way if you're using any sort of iframe. So this method, which I just showed you, works for the iframe, but it also works for the embed, because this basically just generates an iframe. So it's pretty much the same as using this one. Okay, let's take a look at the second method. So if you're using the source code, so you will copy this into your website. So I just copied all of this and added it as a code block to Squarespace, and then take a look. Well, the problem with this seems to be that, at least in Squarespace, the layout is totally broken. Now I tried this out on a code pen, and on a code pane where there are no default styles, like Squarespace has default styles, it's working much better. So you're gonna have a variable rate of success with the source code. Maybe on some platforms it looks very nice like this, and on other platforms, like in Squarespace, it's terrible. However, in this tutorial, we're not interested in layouts, we're interested in conversion tracking. So I will show you how to do conversion tracking for the source code JotForm. Heading back to Google Tag Manager, for this one, we go to Variables, Configure, and then look for forms here. And I think it's a good idea to just check all of these forms so we have these variables available. So these aren't available or kind of enabled by default in Google Tag Manager, so we will enable them, and we will be able to use the form ID specifically. Okay, I'm gonna go to my developer tools and find the ID for this form. Okay. And here it is. Here is the form element, and here is the ID of that form. There may be an easier way to find this. For me, this is the easiest. All right, I checked this, and it's actually this is the ID of your form. So this is probably an easier for non-developers. So next, heading to triggers, we're using the JotForm source code trigger. So you would click on new and look for a form submission trigger, because this JotForm is now part of our website. It's not an iframe, it's actual part of the website. So we can use the normal form submission trigger in Google Tag Manager. So page path contains just any page. This trigger fires on some forms, and then you would select the form ID, which we enabled in the variables just now, and then this one equals the ID of your form, which was this one here, or this one. The ID of the form, as you can see, is quite literally here on the source code. Now my Google Analytics form for form submit tag, which is gonna actually send the information to Google Analytics, is now using all the three methods I'm at least gonna cover in this tutorial. So we covered the iframe, which was the first one, the best method, but it's also triggering on the source code form submit trigger we just looked at 10 seconds ago. So let's take this for a test. Okay, so now we're looking at the source code version. Again, the layout is just not working at all, but we don't care about that. If it's working for you, great. So when I click submit in Google Tag Manager, the trigger for the form submit is gonna fire. It's gonna see that it's the correct form, and it's gonna check out the form submission, and it's gonna fire our Google Analytics 4 tag. So let's demonstrate that. So the redirection, which I'm not sure how we can get rid of that, because that's a very bad experience. Haven't looked into that yet. But in our tag assistant, we can see that a form submit trigger was correctly fired, and it fired the tag Google Analytics form for form submit for JotForm. So let's head to Google Analytics debug view, and we're gonna see the JotForm submit using the second method, the source code method. Now there is a third method which we can use. Now this is something that I have seen a lot of kind of problems with, and I'm quickly gonna explain the biggest problem that I often see. So the third method is the redirect method, where we redirect after form submission, and then we fire the conversion on the thank you page. Now, the problem that I have seen, I haven't yet verified whether this is the case in JotForm, but in most iframes where we redirect to a custom thank you page, there is a huge problem. And the problem is that in Google Analytics, when you get the conversion, one of the most important things you're interested in is the traffic source. Where did they come from? So where does the converted visitors come from? Do they come from organic search, email, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, other social media, paid, Google ads, your some kind of campaign or your blog post or wherever? So one of the reasons you want the conversion tracking is to know which traffic is actually converting. So in my testing for most iframe redirection kind of conversion tracking setups, the problem is that Google Analytics might think that it was JotForm that sent you this kind of converted visitor, because JotForm is the one that sent you to the thank you page, if that makes sense. So even though they came from, let's say, organic Google search or your email campaign, Google Analytics might attribute the traffic source to be JotForm because, yeah, JotForm sent them to the thank you page. And as we're tracking the thank you page visits, not the actual kind of form submissions, then this is a very likely problem you're going to have. And it kind of makes the conversion tracking for Google Analytics, for example, totally pointless. So just wanted to let you know that I do not recommend this method. However, I'm still going to show you how it would be done. So in triggers, we would create a new trigger. I have that already created. So JotForm. And here's an interesting part, the trigger type. You might think that you would go for a page view. However, in my testing, for some reason, the page view isn't fired when we do the redirect. So you should go for window loaded or DOM ready. Actually, DOM ready is better, so I'm gonna switch from window loaded to DOM ready. Let me run a quick test. Perfect. So I tested it, and now I'm gonna show you how it's working. Now again, I must emphasize, I do not recommend the redirect method. There are other problems with it as well, because you need to manage your thank you pages, and if it's hard to kind of keep track of multiple forms, all the matching thank you pages, etc. Okay, so that being said, let's take this for a test drive and submit. Whoops, sorry about that, the wrong form. So this is the iframe and redirect form, so never mind that. Click submit, and now we are redirected to a custom thank you page within our website. Going back to Google Tag Assistant, we can see that on the DOM ready, the document object model, which is kind of all the HTML and all the content on the page, when that has been loaded, we send the Google Analytics 4 form submit, and yeah, we should now see that. And here we see I ran a couple of tests and both of them worked. All right, then I also checked the pop-up version, which is one of the ways to embed this one. And this one can't really be tracked because as we click on it, it's quite a literal pop-up. It's not like a modal window within our website, because those could be tracked using one of the 3 methods. However, this pop-up is in no way connected. Well, actually, we could probably use the redirection for the pop-up. All right, so I updated the pop-up to use the redirection method. Now this is the one that I would never in a million years recommend, because the user experience is going to be terrible. But it still kind of illustrates how it could be done. So this is the kind of the button to open the pop-up. So now when I click submit, this pop-up window is gonna go to the custom thank you page, and it's gonna it's a horrible user experience with all these kind of weird windows popping up. But that being said, again, the tag for the thank you page was fired correctly, so it kind of does work. All right, thanks for watching. I will probably be adding more tutorials in the future. This was kind of the overview of what's possible, what's recommended. Make sure to check out my blog post, and if you want help with JotForm conversion tracking, you can hire me and I will do kind of a perfect, clean, tested implementation for you. So you will need to try and figure out all these kind of long and pretty complicated tutorials where you may not be sure whether it's actually tracking conversions properly, and whether there are problems like I mentioned for the custom thank you pages, etc., etc. So yeah, if you want help, please get in touch. Thanks so much for watching.